Alright, we are back with another video. And yep, I'm back with the better quality. Now, last time I actually watched the video and yeah, my mouth was way too close to the microphone that I actually got caught up with it and it just sounded weird. So I'm going to learn my lesson here, hopefully. So, yeah. But today is the start of the new season of these videos. So, now that I'm doing this, I'm going to try to reinvent the channel. Get to a point where my creative burnout is all gone and I actually get to a point where I can actively upload videos again without literally being burnt out about the channel. So I'm doing this. I'm doing request mostly. I'll be doing a lot of request here for this one. I will probably do some where it's half request, half my choice eventually. But yeah, a majority of these videos are going to be requested ones that I'm doing here. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoy these requests, and I will try to get more videos out eventually when I get the chance. But today's video is, you can judge by the title, it is what would happen if Speedwagon died instead of Will Zeppeli. So another what if character died instead of another character video, but we're going with definitely a more interesting take on it by switching around two of the Phantom Blood Joe Bros. I mean, there are other Joe Bros I could switch around, but I didn't think they would make for an interesting video. I could do Dyer dying instead of Straight So maybe one day, if anyone's interested in that one. Tom Petty dying instead of Dyer, but even though that probably just turned what if Dyer didn't die, which I already made that video, so it's kind of useless to do what if Dyer die instead of what if Tom Petty died instead of Dyer. But maybe I'll do what if Straight So died instead of Dyer. But we're doing what would happen if the death of William happened, if the death of William was given to Speedwagon. So, yeah, this was a request by someone super into cats, who I've lost a comment to, unfortunately, but he'll probably reply to this one since he likes Will a lot. So, yeah, let's get to this video, and hope you guys enjoy. So, starting off with Phantom Blood, this one's a little weird to write around since Will was fated to die against Tarkus. Now, in this timeline, let's assume maybe for the sake of the plot, let's say maybe Will was never fated to die that way, or maybe Will just happened to defy fate. But however, at the cost, Speedwagon pays the price. Maybe this is one of those things where Will got very cocky or something, and maybe Speedwagon tried to help out, or maybe Speedwagon sacrificed himself so William can live. So in this timeline, Speedwagon dies. Now, obviously, one change is that we don't get Will's hormone boost out of Jonathan. Now, granted, with Will still alive with Jonathan, I think they could beat Tarkus together. I mean, yeah, the death of Speedwagon, I'm pretty sure the death of Speedwagon can work as a good rage amp. Jonathan and Speedwagon were good friends for a little while. So, if anything, maybe Jonathan having the death of his friend, like his oldest ally at this point of the story, that would affect him a lot, honestly. So, if anything, having Speedwagon die here as like a kind of motivational thing to give Jonathan that reason to want to fight Tarkus would make a lot of sense. William Zeppeli can help Jonathan, obviously, and then I don't think much would change after this. I guess Will can just help out and stuff. But one change that's going to happen is that Dyer would never die in this timeline. Dyer only dies because of Will's death motivating him, because the death of Will, him and Will were good friends, so he decides not to jump in. Now, even in the case of Speedwagon dying here, Dyer never met Speedwagon at this point in the story. It's not like in this timeline, because they only interacted with each other during the events of Phantom Blood. It's not like they've known each other for a long time. And even if he was told about the death of Speedwagon and all that, I still don't think Dyer would realistically go for the Thundercross split and would risk his life there. So if anything, we would have both Will and Dyer still alive in this timeline. So we get two characters who get to live. Now the fight with Dio would definitely be tougher for Jonathan, but maybe with the extra help of Dyer and Will here, they can help out. We don't really get Speedwagon here for his commentary, but then again, I'd say the two hormone users would definitely be a lot more useful in this battle than Speedwagon ever was. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure nothing would honestly change. I still think we get Jonathan's wedding. I don't think Will's going on the boat, which would be cool, but then again, if Speedwagon didn't go to the wedding, I'm pretty sure Will's not going either, and I certainly don't think Dyer's going in the wedding either. So it's just going to be Jonathan and Arena, like in canon. Arena would still be the only one who lives with Lisa Lisa. Jonathan dies, so Arena, George II, and Lisa Lisa can live, like in the canon. So unfortunately, we do get the death of Jonathan. And in this alternative universe, nothing really changes death-wise. The only changes here are that Speedwagon dies to Targus instead of Will, and Dyer does not get killed by Dio. Everything else that originally happens here goes the same. Everyone else who originally lives and dies at that point, like Jonathan, Georgia First, Danny, etc., they still live and die because they have no real effect on the plot. But that's honestly all I could really say for Phantom Blood. Now, when it comes to battle tendency, this is where the changes begin. So I guess beginning of the story, we get no Speedwagon Foundation off the bat. Now, granted, we can go with the assumption that maybe Will forms a Speedwagon Foundation, or maybe Dyer does it, but I doubt Dyer would do it. It really doesn't make any sense. Will, I mean, he's a smart guy. I could say it'd make a lot of sense that he would want to help the Joestars, but I don't know if he would be a businessman. I don't think he'd he'd go to America, become a rich oil salesman like Speedwagon did, and do everything Speedwagon did and just become wealthy. Now, I think Will Zeppeli was already wealthy. I mean, look at the guy's outfit. He definitely had to be loaded with at least a decent amount of money. Well, I mean, look at his designer clothes. So I'm pretty sure he must have had a way to make a living somehow. I could see Will probably being wealthy, maybe using some kind of influence to help out with Arena, for sure, in the place of Speedwagon, along with Dyer and Straitso. Straitso would still help out and raise Arena. And I think Dyer could help out with George II being more of a father figure to him, maybe, which I think would make a lot of sense. And I could see Dyer being the best choice for a father figure. And then Will can go back and help Mario get raised. Now, in my opinion, George II might actually live, since Dyer can just teach him Hamon, which we'll assume he does. So George is at least still alive. And with Will alive, I'm pretty sure Mario wouldn't die either. I assume Mario still may have to leave his children behind, so like Caesar's still there. And I actually think Caesar's siblings could get involved in the part, so they would be around here as well. So it'd be Mario, Caesar's siblings, Will, and Dyer as extra allies here, and also Straitso, because Straitso would never have any reason to turn to a vampire. Now, without the Speedwagon Foundation, what would be some changes? Well, I guess Joseph awakening Hamon for the first time is going to have to be rewritten, since that was with Speedwagon and his foundation getting robbed. Now, we'll say for the sake of the plot, it's probably like George II and Arena who's there instead, or just George II. Or maybe Dyer and George II. I don't know. It doesn't matter who's there. All that matters here is that Joseph's going to be awakening Hamon for the first time with another person. I can see George maybe training him with Hamon in the place of, like, I guess, kind of to give Joseph, like, that mentor role. So Joseph could actually be better with Hamon. So I could maybe see George kind of having, like, a father-son Hamon teaching thing, which makes a lot of sense and would be kind of cool to see, but hard to say there for sure. Regarding the rest of the story, I don't think much would honestly change for part 2 in the beginning. I don't remember anything the Speedwagon Foundation really did in the beginning, honestly. I mean, I guess someone's gonna get kidnapped by the Nazis instead. I assume George can run in and try to stop the Nazis by himself. Dyer can try to talk him out of it, and this leads to both of them getting kidnapped. And then Straitso can go back and tell Joseph about everything going on. So that leads to Joseph and Straitso working together. Nothing much would honestly change. I could still see the fight with Santana going the same. Stroheim could potentially die in this timeline, but then again, seeing how the Speedwagon Foundation didn't really help with German science, and they only helped with like the UV lights, to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure Stroheim still lives and becomes a cyborg. We still get to meet the Zeppelis. We get to meet more than just Caesar. We get his siblings, we get Mario, we get Will. So we get all these new Zeppelis to help out in the part, along with George, Dyer, and Straitso, who are with Joseph. Now, when it comes to anything else, the Pillarmen fight, I could see probably going the same. Maybe they defeat some of the Pillarmen earlier, but it's hard to say. I don't know about AC/DC. I think we might avoid the whole brain thing instead. So maybe the first AC/DC fight goes the same, but the whole brain thing never happens. Loggins might live depending on if he has backup, which I think he could. So we'll say like maybe Dyer, Straightso, one of those two. Both of them maybe. They're with Loggins. They help out Loggins, and then Joseph is able to make it in time. And because of the extra help, they defeat him earlier. And with them noticing the brain, they just destroy it earlier. So AC/DC's out of the question earlier. Now the question is, how do they find out the red stone? In this alternative universe, maybe there's some dumb luck that gets them to find out about the stone much earlier. I don't know. You can find any way. JoJo's a very weird series, and they find excuses for just about anything and anything and everything to happen. So, yeah. Nothing else I can really change until the Wamu fight, which I think instead of it being Caesar, I think the brothers would run in out of spite, since I think Caesar's siblings would all hate Mario and Caesar. So I think the brothers could be the ones who run in to spite Mario, and like Caesar's hard work to say like, we can kill them without even training. And I think they would almost die, but I think Will would sacrifice himself. In Will's death that was fated to happen back in Phantom Blood just happens here. So he gets killed by getting cut in half by Wamu. Basically, you know, what was originally going to happen against Tarkus happens to him here against Wamu. I think that Caesar, Mario, and the Caesar sisters can just come in with Caesar's brothers. Will can give all of them some kind of split of his hormone boost, and they can all work together and just kill Wamu. You know, a big giant Zeppeli group. All the family, the father, the sons, and the daughters working together to kill Wamu. Which would honestly be pretty cool to see. And after that, it would be harder to negotiate a deal with Cars, but maybe it's like one of them challenges Cars to a one-on-one fight. We'll say it's Lisa, like in the canon. And I don't think much would change. I'm pretty sure Dyer, Straightso, one of them or both of them can die here. I don't think it would affect the plot. And that's really it for part 2, honestly. I don't think anything would really change here, honestly. When it comes to who lives and dies overall, I don't think too much would change. But however, I think they would need a lot of Speedwagon Foundation help. For example, like the UV lights. I don't know how the fight would go without the UV lights. Maybe there's something else instead. Maybe some other homo means, I don't know, but yeah. I think Strime's going to survive World War II, so we get him and we can have Dominic and Nico in the story. Caesar's still around to have Julius and Rose, I guess. That's overall what I can see potentially happening. I got no real other ideas I have for, I guess, after part 2. But except we get more Zeppelis and more characters like that. But yeah, that's all I gotta say here. For part 3, well, for starters, we need this. We obviously needed the Speedwagon Foundation for a lot of stuff. Now, I think when it comes to how part 3 can start off, obviously you get some of your extra characters in there. You got Mario and George can be there because, you know, Caesar can have Gaius, and Gaius can die to Dio, getting stabbed by the arrow. Julius and Rose obviously can exist. Stroheim has Dominic Nico, they get their stands. Machina and Loggins are debatable, but I doubt they'd be in the story since we don't even know what happened to them in the canon, and we don't even know much about their characters, or Machina's character, let alone Loggins. We don't know much about him either, so I don't know if they'll be in part 3. That's more or less up for interpretation or up for debate. Lisa could potentially be in the story if she gets a stand. If you want to continue, if you want to add the Lisa story as canon, like the spinoff where she gets a stand. Joseph's still in the story, but he can have hormones, so like there's that. I don't really got much else to say. I guess Jotaro's still in the part. We obviously still, I mean, we could still, there might not be an Avdol, but I still think we'll find Avdol because Joseph's got Hermit Purple. And I'm pretty sure we get the whole stand users attract each other thing out of Avdol. Kakyoin and Polnareff, they were evil and then got redeemed because of Jotaro removing a flesh bug, so of course they're part of the team still. Iggy, on the other hand, might not be in the story because Iggy in this alternative universe just isn't discovered by the Speedwagon Foundation. So yeah, Iggy's still, I guess, a loose dog under control where no one knows about him. So yeah, poor Iggy, he's gone from the story. No one really knows much about Ig after this point of the story. He's kind of just living his life as a dog. We don't really know anything about him. He's just a dog stand user, and there's no Speedwagon Foundation to find him out. Granted, if you want to use the stand user to attract other stand users thing, then Iggy can still be part of the team, but it's going to be hard to write around it, so I'm pretty sure Iggy's not here in the story, unfortunately. Whole Horse could join in this timeline on the bright side. I can maybe see him falling in love with, like, Lisa or something. So on the bright side, we'd still get Whole Horse. For the rest of part 3, I don't think much would honestly change, except that a lot of stuff would be a lot harder to obtain. But then again, with this, like, even though the Speedwagon Foundation's gone, the Joestars are canonically rich, and I'm pretty sure the Zeppeli should be pretty rich after the events of Battle Tendency and Phantom Blood. And the Stroheim family should at least be Stroheim's family should at least be wealthy, assuming Stroheim does a lot of greatness with his German science. So if anything, if they combine all those resources and money all together, I'm pretty sure they can get some cool stuff like airplanes and boats and stuff to replace the Speedwagon Foundation, which I think would work. So if you're wanting to go that logic, maybe they have those kind of characters and their wealth to replace that stuff, which we'll assume they do for the sake of plot, so we can still get a lot of those arcs to at least make some sense in the plot. When it comes to the final half of the story, Kakyoin is going to be out of the rest of the part, along with Rose, because Kakyoin still has that eye injury. Rose wants to stay behind since I think they'd be friends by this point, so both Rose and Kakyoin are gone for the final half of part 3. So they're not even returning for the Dio half together. Maybe Rose can on her own accord, because maybe Kakyoin convinces her to, but I don't know. Hard to say. Kakyoin's still out with an injury though, so he's not coming back for the rest of the part. Unless Nico comes in and heals him, like later on in the story. I don't know. But Kakyoin's out for the rest of the story. Because they confirmed that the Speedwagon Foundation came in last minute and came in clutch and gave Kakyoin the chance to heal his eyes earlier. So if anything, Kakyoin's just, without the Speedwagon Foundation, Kakyoin's out a little bit longer. Since they said it would have taken a few weeks for his eyes to recover, and they were just a couple of days away before the Dio fight. So like, if anything, I doubt Kakyoin was going to get the chance to fight Dio in this alternative universe. He would come back and get healed up, but he'll probably just not be able to do much, and he just go back home as soon as everything's all. And he just goes back home as soon as his eyes are completely healed up. For the part 3 fight, though, when it comes to the Vanilla Ice stuff, I guess maybe I don't know. Someone's gonna die against Vanilla Ice. I'm pretty sure. I don't know who. I guess for Dio. Someone's dying to get to reveal the world's power. As for who I'm going to have die in this alternative universe, I'm going to say Mario's going to maybe be the one who dies in part 5. I mean, not part 5, but he dies to Dio to reveal the world's power. And I'm going to have Stroheim also die to Dio. And then who dies to Vanilla Ice? Either you can keep it as Avdol, or I'd personally just have like Lisa or someone like, or Whole Horse maybe just do instead. Probably Lisa, I guess, because I like Whole Horse and Avdol more, so I think I'd sacrifice her overall. If Machina and Loggins are options, then I'd just have Mario and Lisa both live, and have Machina and Loggins take their death places, honestly. But that's honestly all I could say for part 3. Overall, Kakyoin's out for a lot longer, so he's not even there for the final half. Iggy, I guess, is not even in the story to begin with. Lisa and Lisa and Mario take the death spots of Avdol and Kakyoin, and then Stroheim dies against Dio. Yeah, it's a very grim timeline, honestly. Don't got much else to say, so yeah, that's the end of the story. For part 3, at least. So when it comes to part 4, something I forgot about when it comes to a big change regarding part 4 is that Joseph may not even be in the story. So, if you remember correctly, Joseph had that whole blood transfusion that brought him back, but maybe in this timeline it's possible that Joseph doesn't get brought back via the blood transfusion. That's assuming if the Speedwagon Foundation played a part in that, but like, I don't remember if they did or didn't. But then again, it's possible Joseph may just stay dead in this alternative timeline, since they may not be able to do that. Now the question is, will they be able to discover Josuke? I think they can under the circumstances of George II being the one who does it. You know, him having Herbert Purple and him discovering it. Him discovering the existence of Josuke and Angelo in the place of Joseph. And then eventually having to play the Red Hot Chili Pepper role arc. Now, assuming Joseph is still brought back, obviously you can still have him do all that stuff. And I also could see characters like Kakyoin getting brought back in the story. I could see Avdol being brought in the story. I see Rose and Nico being in the story. Whole Horse can be there. George II's going to be there, obviously, regardless of whether Joseph's there or not. And then Jotaro's obviously still there no matter what. When it comes to part 4, I don't think much would honestly change, with extra characters obviously being there. I mean, I think for Red Hot Chili Pepper, they can just say, that George and Joseph are just taking their own boat with no like Speedwagon Foundation there, because obviously Speedwagon Foundation doesn't exist because Speedwagon dies back in Phantom Blood, so like he can't create the foundation. I don't really want to go through all of Part 4's changes. Like I said, if you want to go through every part's changes, I guess from a timeline perspective here, I can go into them. But when it comes to Part 4, I don't really think much would change, because I don't think the Speedwagon Foundation did much in the part. I guess the question is, what would happen to Shizuka, assuming Joseph does die in Stardust Crusaders? Well, I think George would probably just take her in his place, in Joseph's place, but that's just my opinion. I think for the final fight of Part 4, I think George would actually die against Kira in the place of Okuyasu's fake-out death, and that would be the thing that motivates Josuke to actually kill Kira in this timeline. So I think Josuke and Okuyasu would work together and kill Kira, instead of it being stolen by an ambulance in Jotaro. But, that's probably what I think would happen, and I think it would make a lot of sense. I guess the question now is, what would happen to Shizuka after that? I don't think much would honestly happen. I think she'd just get adopted by someone else. Most likely Avdol or Whole Horse, maybe even Rohan, which I doubt. Kakyoin and Rose can do it together, but I don't know. It's hard to say which characters would and wouldn't adopt Shizuka. I doubt it would have to be Jotaro because he's married to a non-stan user, so I doubt he's an option to take Shizuka. So, yeah, I guess Jotaro would probably not be the one who does it. I guess the question is, how do they find out about the random girls without the Speedwagon Foundation? Pretty simple. I guess Rohan can do it on his own. Maybe he just goes to a police department, asks about missing people reports and stuff, and that's how they do it. That or Avdol can do it, since it's can confirm that Avdol's pretty good when it comes to obtaining sources. I could see Kakyoin and Rohan honestly just helping out with the investigation in general. Since both were very smart and calculative guys, they can join Rohan and Jotaro and help them out with it. I don't think they'd prevent anyone like Aya or Shigeki from like getting killed or anything, but like that's just my opinion. I think Part 4 would kind of just go the same, but with extra characters around to help out with some other stuff. But that's honestly all I could really say. That's personally how I would imagine Part 4 going in this timeline, to be honest. Nothing too major would change, in my opinion. For Part 5, I feel like the changes here would be that Avdol's going on the mission, and I could actually see him taking Josuke and Okuyasu and Rohan with him, along with Koichi. And they'd meet a long-lost Zeppeli relative named Frido, or Frito. I'm thinking Fredo. My younger brother said Fredo is the right way to pronounce it, I think, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong. I don't think much would change. Kind of my typical storyline there. And I guess the question is, how did they find out about Giorno? Assuming that Joseph's still alive, he can do it. Like maybe they do something similar with like Joseph. They do something similar that so how they found Josuke and Angelo, but instead they find out Giorno and maybe like Diavolo out the same way or something. And then that's why Avdol and the others are sent. Assuming Joseph is out of the equation, and since we can't do George because he died against Kira, I guess they find out some other means. Maybe DNA testing. I don't know. But they needed the Speedwagon Foundation to find out about the identity of Giorno and to send those people out. Now, when it comes to the events of Part 5, I honestly don't think the fights would change too much. Though I do think some fights, like the Pesky and Prosciutto fight, could definitely go on a little bit quicker in this timeline. I still think everything with Bruno goes the same, so he still dies and gets resurrected. Fugo would actually join the team, in my opinion, since I could see Avdol talking him into joining. And overall, I could see Avdol still dying. Not Avdol, but Abakio still dying during the time where they're at the beach. So Abakio still dies, using Moody Blues to reveal Diavolo's real identity. But that's honestly all I could really see happening. Nothing else I could really see changing here. Except Polnareff would have more allies with him. He'd have Julius, Caesar, Caesar's brothers, Dominic, and Iggy. Not Iggy, but Dominic. He'd only have those characters with him because Iggy's not here in this timeline, since Iggy would have died. Since Iggy would just not even be around anymore. He's probably either dead by old age or he's just doing his own dog stuff. Probably just doing his own dog stuff and then dies from old age like a couple years later or something. I don't know. Regarding around this timeline, I don't know if Narantia's death can be prevented. It honestly just depends if they find a new way to prevent his death. Maybe Caesar's brothers can take that place. I think one of Caesar's brothers can die, saving Frito, whatever you want to call him. And then with Narantia, I'm guessing he might still die, unless you would have the other brother or Caesar himself take that place, which is more of a maybe. I think someone's gonna die in part. I think between the three Zeppelis, like Caesar and his brothers, I can see one, maybe two dying against Diavolo in the final fight. Maybe even all three, but I don't think all three is gonna die. I think only like one or two of them would die. Probably saving Narantia or something. I don't know. Or you could have Narantia still die. I don't know. That's kind of up for you. But I do believe Bruno's death happens regardless. Unfortunately, Bruno still gets the arrow. In the events of Part 5, I do think the survivors would be somewhat different in this timeline, but I do think this would be an interesting alternative universe to say the least. But that's honestly all I really got to say for Part 5. There's nothing else. There's nothing much I can honestly add to this part, or really no other changes I could really see being made here. Now, when it comes to Part 6, I think the beginning of the part goes the same, but however, once Jotaro gets his disc taking, it would definitely be different, because we needed the Speedwagon Foundation to keep Jotaro's body intact, because without that, Jotaro most likely just decomposes and he's dead for a lot quicker. Now, to be fair, with, I guess, maybe German science hacks, maybe they use cyborg-like parts, maybe with the... And if anything, maybe the German science can replace a lot of the things here for Part 6, now that I think about it. With Dominic and Nico around, they can maybe play that role of the Speedwagon Foundation in an extent, and be the ones that are keeping Jotaro on life support. Which I think would actually make a lot of sense, if you want to go that route, and I probably would go that route. Another scenario is they could call Giorno in, and he can use his life-giving powers to help out, which I actually think would be cool. And I think this could actually lead to more survivors from Part 5 going along and actually helping on the adventure. I don't think much would honestly change. Honestly, on a side note, now I think about it, I think Avdol would also die in Part 5, but that's just my opinion. As for the rest of the story, I don't really think there's anything I could honestly say. For Part 6, I think in this timeline, Josuke, Okuyasu, Koichi, Rohan can go in because Tenmei, Taijana, and Michael would all exist. So, yeah, and then we also have Sophia, who can still exist. I don't think much would honestly change there. Hermes would not get her head injury because Josuke can heal her, but then she can die in the punishment board. But FF lives due to all the extra help they would have. Nothing changes after that point. We still get the rest of the story. I guess the Sons of Dio goes more or less the same. But I actually think Rikill would actually turn good because Josuke would heal him at the end and I think Josuke would see the honor in Rikill and would have him and would want to recruit him to the team, which Rikill would be cool with joining. Nothing else I could honestly see really changing after that point. That kind of really, I think, would not really change much after that. I still think we get the whole Heavy Weather arc and the whole Donatello arc honestly just go the same, but I think they'd find a new way to survive Donatello since Hermes is dead in this timeline much sooner. And then for Heavy Weather and Weather Reports thing, that goes the same, so he still dies. But all the new characters find other ways to insert themselves in this arc. For the Made in Heaven and Sea Moon fights, I don't think much would change, except I could see some extra characters like Okuyasu dying, same with Whole Horse. And then I think for like the final battle, I could see like Rikill almost dying, but Nico saving him with her stand. Anasui would survive since I think Josuke can heal him up. And I also think Jotaro can live because of Diver Down. I also could see with all the extra helpers like Caesar in here, all that, they can all help out, and I probably see them a lot of them dying here in Part 6 as well. Like the rest of Caesar and his siblings can die here in Part 6. If Joseph's still alive, I would like to have him sacrifice himself at the end. But assuming we go the route where the blood transfusion is not possible and Joseph just stays dead, then I think Jotaro or Josuke would make the most logical sense to sacrifice themselves. Or maybe Caesar can do it. I don't know if it would fit from a storytelling standpoint of Jotaro or Josuke, a previous JoJo, doing it. But Caesar can work if you want to go that route. That's honestly all I gotta really say for part 6 and this timeline as a whole. I might do a more detailed version in the comments if you want to hear, but that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'm able to continue this kind of series up, because this is honestly fun and I'm kind of more interested in doing this. But yeah, that's today's video, and I'll see y'all next week for the next video, because I'm going to actually try doing this more and more. So enjoy today, have a good rest of the week, and I'll hopefully see you next week or the week after and try to continue this new series of styles of videos. Alright, see ya.